In April 2009, Susan Boyle, a 47-year-old woman from a small Scottish town, became an overnight sensation. A grainy online video of her performance was watched 100 million times in just 9 days, breaking records and capturing the hearts of millions. This wasn't a polished music video or a global pop star launch. It was an unassuming clip of Susan, who had lived a life of silence and rejection, stepping onto the stage of Britain's Got Talent. At 47, she was a stark contrast to the youthful, polished contestants expected in the entertainment industry. She was too old, too plain, and too unconventional. The exact type of talent the entertainment world was designed to overlook. But when Susan opened her mouth to sing, the world listened, and everything changed. Growing up in Blackburn, a life of struggle and silence, Susan Magdalene Boyle was born in 1961, the youngest of 10 children in the small Scottish town of Blackburn, West Lothian. From the start, her life was marked by challenges. A difficult birth left her with minor brain damage, which would affect her throughout her life. Though she was not able to keep up with her peers academically, her greatest challenge was the cruelty of those around her. At school, Susan was given the nickname Susie Simple, a taunt that would haunt her for years. Children excluded her from games, teased her relentlessly, and in turn, Susan internalized their harsh judgment. Despite this, she found solace in music. It was through her singing that she found a sense of identity that the world around her could not take away. Music became her refuge, her escape from the pain of a world that didn't understand her, the support of a loving mother. While Susan's childhood was filled with loneliness and rejection, she found one constant source of support in her mother, Bridget. Bridget saw her daughter not as a burden, but as someone with potential. It was Bridget who first encouraged Susan to sing in public, pushing her to participate in local talent shows and competitions. Susan performed in church halls, community centers, and small venues where the crowd's attention was usually elsewhere. Yet her mother's belief in her remained unwavering, and Susan continued to sing, holding on to the hope that one day her voice would be heard. After Bridget's passing in 2007, Susan found herself alone in the same council house she grew up in, with only her cat, Pebbles, for company. She had no idea that her life was about to change forever. Dreams of a larger stage, the struggles before fame. Susan's desire to become a professional singer never waned, but the opportunities she pursued were always out of reach. In her 20s and 30s, she applied to performing arts programs, recorded a demo tape, and participated in local competitions, but was consistently overlooked. Rejection became a familiar companion. The entertainment industry had a narrow vision of who could succeed, and Susan's appearance, age, and unique personality didn't fit into their carefully crafted image of stardom. She continued to sing at local events, but the world seemed to have no place for her. Yet despite the repeated setbacks, Susan's dream remained alive, nurtured by her mother's belief in her and her own love for music. Little did she know that her big break was just around the corner, the moment that changed everything. In April 2009, at the age of 47, Susan Boyle took the bold step of auditioning for Britain's Got Talent. She almost didn't go. The self-doubt and fear of rejection had plagued her for years. But a promise to her late mother kept her going. She made her way to Glasgow, carrying with her the weight of years of silent rejection. On stage, dressed in a simple gold lace dress, she stood before an audience that had already written her off. The judges, particularly Simon Cowell, were ready for entertainment at Susan's expense. They expected a laugh, a moment of ridicule, but instead they got something entirely unexpected. Susan's performance of I Dreamed a Dream from Les Miserables brought the audience to silence and then to tears. In just 30 seconds, Susan Boyle's life changed forever. The viral sensation, a global awakening. What happened in those few minutes on stage was nothing short of magical. The audience, which had initially laughed at her, was quickly stunned into silence. The powerful beauty of Susan's voice recalibrated the entire room, forcing everyone to confront their assumptions about her. By the time she finished her performance, the crowd was on its feet, applauding and cheering. Simon Cowell, who had initially dismissed her, was now leaning forward in disbelief, clearly moved by the performance. The clip was uploaded to YouTube almost immediately, and within just 9 days, it had been watched over 100 million times. Susan had not only captured the world's attention, but had also broken through years of invisibility and rejection. She had become a global sensation. The price of fame, an overwhelming transformation. While the viral success of Susan Boyle's audition was an incredible triumph, it also came with a price. Fame, when it comes suddenly and unexpectedly, doesn't give a person time to adjust. For someone like Susan, who had lived a quiet, isolated life for nearly 5 decades, the rapid shift to global stardom was overwhelming. Within just a few days, Susan found herself thrust into the limelight, facing a barrage of media attention and public scrutiny. The world now wanted to know everything about her, her past, her struggles, her personal life. Susan was thrust into the world of celebrity, but she was unprepared for the loss of privacy and the constant pressure to perform. Fame, which had come as a dream, quickly began to feel like a heavy burden. The fairy tale unfolds, a rapid rise. The weeks following Susan Boyle's viral audition were filled with whirlwind media appearances and interviews. She appeared on morning shows in the United States, was interviewed by major publications, and was surrounded by a team of publicists, managers, and agents. The media, which had once mocked her, now saw her as a success story, a woman who had defied the odds. The fairy tale narrative was irresistible. Susan, the woman who had been overlooked for so long, had suddenly become a global star. But while the world celebrated her success, Susan was struggling to keep up with the pace of her newfound fame. She had spent nearly half a century living in relative obscurity, and now she was forced to navigate an entirely new life, one she wasn't sure she was ready for. The emotional toll, adjusting to a new reality. As Susan Boyle's popularity soared, the emotional toll began to take its toll on her. The pressures of fame, combined with the scrutiny from the public and media, started to weigh heavily on her. The quiet, private life she had known for so long was gone, replaced by a never-ending cycle of appearances, interviews, and performances. Susan had to come to terms with the fact that she was no longer just Susan Boyle from Blackburn. She was now Susan Boyle, the global phenomenon. The shift was jarring and at times overwhelming. While the world celebrated her success, Susan found herself struggling with the changes it brought to her life. The fame she had long dreamed of had arrived, but it was far more complicated than she had ever imagined. A new beginning. Finding balance in fame. In the years that followed her rise to fame, Susan Boyle faced both triumphs and challenges. She released albums, performed for audiences around the world, and became a beloved figure, known not just for her voice, but for the strength it took to rise above the odds. Yet, as her fame continued to grow, Susan learned to find a balance between her public life and her private self. She took time to reflect on her journey, understanding that while fame had brought her recognition and success, it had also forced her to confront parts of herself she had long kept hidden. Through it all, Susan Boyle remained a symbol of resilience and authenticity, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary talents are found in the most unexpected places.